What is up, peeps? It's Thursday, so I decided to do a video. I wanted to do this video for a couple of days now, just haven't had the time, been super busy. But anyway, let's talk about it. So, we're going to talk about earning the right. So, from my experience, I've seen a lot of coaches when they're doing their assessment or they're coaching them, they kind of just throw them into a movement without really knowing what the prerequisite for that movement is, right? So, we're going to get to that later. But anyway, what does earning the right mean? It means earning your way to do the movement that is going to challenge you. So, for example, earning the right to do a kettlebell goblet squat, earning the right to do a kettlebell swing, earning the right to add some weight to your squat, deadlift, wherever the case may be, right? We have to earn that right to get to that next step. So, think about it as a video game, right? You're not just going to go fight the boss right off the bat, right? You have to earn your right and battle through the levels to get to the boss, to get to the end of the game, right? So it's the same thing. So we have to earn that right to get to the movement that we ultimately want to get to, because that's how we're going to stay safe and that's how we're not going to get injured, right? So how are we going to do that? We're going to master the basics. So for me, for example, let's break down a squat. So the first thing that somebody's going to do is a body weight squat to a box, right? Once that checks out, at least in my eyes, then we can move to maybe a body weight squat without the box. Then we can move to a kettlebell squat, goblet squat. Then we can move to maybe a double kettlebell front squat, stuff like that, right? So we have to master the foundation of the movement before we earn the right to go to the next movement, right? So make sure that you have your progression list, because like I said, and this is a mistake that I've made in the past too, you kind of just throw people into movements without knowing if they can do the basic part of that movement, right? So, for example, you can't have a Mr. and Mrs. Jones come in off the street that's 45, 50, 55 years old and throw a barbell on their back and expect them to know how to squat or know how to lunge, right? We have to take that down and go to the basic regressions of that movement and make sure that they understand how to do it and they're competent in it. Then we can move to the next progression, whatever that progression is for you. I've obviously everybody doesn't have the same progression regression list, which is completely fine, but we have to make sure that we understand that basic movement pattern before we earn the right to get to the next thing, right? So let's talk about barbells real quick. So for me, for my clients and the way that I coach, I very rarely use a barbell for my clients. Obviously I use it for myself because I have different goals, but very rarely am I going to put a barbell on somebody's back, because a goblet squat is going to be perfectly fine. A double kettlebell squat is going to be perfectly fine for somebody. We don't need to injure anybody or put somebody in a bad position. Our job is to put people in the best possible position for them to be successful, right? So how do we do that? So typically how everything should start, at least in my eyes and the way that I do it, is body weight movements, right? So a push-up, body weight squat, body weight lunge, stuff like that, right? And then we move to dumbbells, kettlebells, things like that. Like I said, barbells don't really use that much, but kettlebells, dumbbells, body weight is a great way to start, and you start earning your right to progress in that movement and moving up, right? So let's take an example for real quick, right? So kettlebell swing, and I see this so much at commercial gyms. You'll have your trainer, you'll have your client, and they'll kind of make a circuit and they'll say, all right, this is what we're going to do. And then they add kettlebell swings in without even teaching anybody how to do this swing, right? And I see it all the time. And I'm not saying that my way is the best, like I said before, or that you have to listen to anything, right? But we got to make sure that people understand, if you can't hinge correctly, so if you can't sit in that hinge for 30, 45 seconds for 2 to 3 rounds, you shouldn't be swinging at all, right? So the swing for me is the last progression to a hinge, right? So we have the hinge, then we have a dumbbell RDL, then we have a kettlebell deadlift, then we have a trap bar deadlift, right? The swing should be last on the list because you have to earn that right to get to the swing. Meaning, we have to make sure your fundamental movement is really good and it looks really good, you're safe, and you're feeling it where you're supposed to be feeling it, right? So like I said, you have to earn the right to get to the next movement. Don't just throw somebody in a movement because you think it's going to be best for them. Start at the foundations. If they master the foundations, then you can move them to the next step. So quick little video. Hopefully this brought some value. If you liked it, share it. If it brought value to you, it's going to bring value to somebody else. If you have questions, shoot me a message and let's talk.